The threat to Britain of state-sponsored terrorism from hostile countries like Iran is an ever-present danger. Tonight we have an exclusive report revealing how the Iranian regime is reaching into the UK to suppress free speech and silence its critics. We've obtained evidence of a plot to assassinate two prominent presenters on an independent Iranian news station which was based in London. That evidence is from the horse's mouth, a middleman, a former gangster tasked with organising the hits, who was also a double agent reporting to Western intelligence.
His name is Fardad Farazad, and tonight he will be the news. He's about to discover that he was the target of an assassination plot by the Iranian regime.
This is the guy who was the double agent.
We've flown to Washington so I can show him our evidence. The messages, the videos, the code words.
The guy he's talking about that is conducting himself properly is the
assassin, yeah.
An assassin who was being directed by this man. We're calling him Ismail. For 6 years, he worked for the Iranian regime. His final assignment was to arrange for the killing of Fardad. But he was also a double agent who helped to foil the attack. Fardad is taking it in. The story unfolding in front of him was meant to end with his death.
To be honest with you, I'm still processing, because obviously I didn't know about these details. No, it's just more vivid when you hear it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are threats, but it's quite different when you see it firsthand.
Yeah.
To avoid detection, the plotters referred to the attack as a wedding and to Fardad as the groom.
I didn't know there is a specific threat against me until now. Hearing it firsthand makes it more real. And quite shocking to see people who are just casually talking about harming you. But now we have evidence, as you just showed me, that there were credible threats against us, that they actually did want to kill us.
And the bride was Seema Sabet, another high-profile figure on the channel who became a target. The spy network had discussed ways to find out where she lived.
The fact that the Islamic Republic had tried to kill me, it shows that I was doing my job very well, I was effective, and I'm so happy and honored that I was credited for the job that I was doing.
The story begins in West London. It's here, to a business park, off an A road, where Iran's violent crackdown on free speech came. Counter-terrorism police turned up here outside Iran International's London newsroom last November, the only public sign of a plot which was then still ongoing.
The threat was such that they needed to place the armed response vehicles with 2 shifts of 12 hours, 30 armed policemen around a building in a 24-hour period.
Only now, thanks to this investigation, can the details be laid bare. Our account is based on analysis of video, phone conversations and messages Ismail sent to both of his bosses, his Western intelligence handlers and a commander who was passing orders from Iran. We can name him as Mohammed Kanafani. He instructed Ismail to arrange the so-called wedding, and Ismail reported back to his Western minders.
اعمل لي حفلة قدام المبنى، حفلة يعني تفجير، اعمل تفجير قدام المبنى حتى لو التفجير بتاعك.
On the 22nd of October, his regime commander sent him the name of directors to target at Iran International.
عاوز المدير بتاعه.
هشوف اللوجو. ده المدير نفسه.
But 2 weeks later, the target switched to the two presenters, the bride and the groom. Ismail was sent pictures of the new targets on WhatsApp, and that day he reported back.
معطيني الصورة اسم وصورتين، صورة شخص وصورة بنت، صورة لشخص راجل وصورة لبنت، ومعطيني اسم القناة Iranian.
The chief plotters panicked, because Iran International's building in West London seemed to be too well protected.
ما يستحمل تأخير.
حاضر حاضر يا
يعني
حبيبي.
كده يعني على بقالنا يومين ثلاثة مش عارفين معناتها ده مش هيقدر.
So using coded language, they urged Ismail to use a knife rather than explosives.
يعني فرح على على السكتي يعني.
عروس وعروس عريس وعروس.
ما عادوش عاوزين يعملوا حفلة، عاوزين حاجة على الضيق كده، حاجة مقفولة على الضيق.
إن شاء الله بسكينة الفواكه.
I have been like this close to being killed by knife or by a bomb. So they changed their strategy. But the fact is that they have been trying to silence me. Why? Because I had millions of audience inside Iran.
1 year on from those conversations, Ismail is sharing more. He's helping me to build a picture of what happened, when, and why. He shared with us some evidence from within the plot. And to answer some of our questions, he sent responses like this one. We asked him to recount conversations with his Iranian minder, who ordered him to check out Iran International's premises in London. He told them it was too well guarded to stage the assassination there.
لقيته بيقول لي دول مبهدلنا إعلاميا لازم تتم في عنوان السكن بتاعهم في مسكنهم.
The chain of command led from Tehran to West London via Damascus. Ismail was being instructed from Syria by Kanafani. Iran is thought to have been running the operation from there. He's a senior figure who at one point shared with him a short video of himself showing off a new speedboat, suggesting he was well paid for his work. Officials say that above Kanafani was the team leader, Mohammed Ansari. Both are believed to be part of a group called Unit 840, which is accused of attempting to carry out assassinations abroad. Journalists and politicians, like the former US Secretary of State. The reporting line leads eventually to the top of the Revolutionary Guard.
وضح لي إن هم إيرانيين وشخصيات رتب ذات مناصب عالية.
What would have been a state-sponsored terror attack on the streets of London, revealing Iran's ambitions in the UK. And all from the mouth of the double agent who helped to plan it and helped to foil it.
Well, Rohit is back here to talk us through a bit more of this. I mean, this was an utterly chilling, brazen plot to target those deemed enemies of the regime. What more did you learn about the sort of network that they used to operate? And did you get any response from the Iranians on this?
No, we asked and have received no responses yet. But I think this case encapsulates so much of what officials are worried about when it comes to state-sponsored terrorism by Iran. You know, firstly, the contracting out of this sort of work. It's been seen in other cases where it's actually criminal networks rather than terrorist networks at first, which are doing this work. And the use of proxies. Here we saw Syria and the Assad regime where this plan was being run from. One thing to note, though, is that these attacks don't appear to be aimed at being indiscriminate. This is not like terrorist organizations which look to attack shopping centers, for example. You know, as some officials say, this is like an attack in the UK, but not against the UK. And there's a contrast here with the methods used by the likes of Russia. You know, remember the Salisbury poisonings? Well, this was their own agents who were sent over. Remember that famous interview on Russia Today, talk about this 100-meter spire. Well, this is quite different. This is work that was contracted out to a criminal gang.
And it's worth reflecting, too, that had this plot come off, in this horror of this plot come off, it would have been last November. A year on, the world is a different and yet more dangerous place. So how are agencies now perhaps bracing for further activity?
Well, all across Europe and around many parts of the world, you know, intelligence agencies are doing much more to look at state-sponsored threats. You know, some of the resources which a few years ago was focused on groups such as ISIS is now looking at countries like China, like Russia, and like Iran as well. What's also changed, of course, in the last few months is the conflict in the Middle East. Iran's proxies in Lebanon and in Gaza are part of this conflict. And it may well be that they end up being far more focused there, but you know, how that pans out and what that means in terms of Iran's state-sponsored terrorism abroad, well, we don't yet know.